Hello everybody, welcome to episode 4 of McMaster and the mic. I am Matt McMaster. I want to thank you once again for joining me. We've been on a little bit of a break here because I've been doing other things on the NFL draft, and episodes 3 and 4 of The Last Dance. That episode will be episode 5. It will come out on Saturday, but today we are talking about a little conspiracy theory that I have that I've had for a while that I just want to, I need to get an episode out. So I think I'll talk about, I'm going to have my phone out here because this is where I have all of my notes. But we're going to be talking about the 2019 NBA Draft Lottery and why I think it was rigged. It's a really big, it's my own conspiracy theory. It's not really like out there. I don't know, it's a big accusation. And it sounds a little bit crazy, but we're going to, I really believe it. I really do believe it. I wouldn't have made a video about it and put it on the internet if I didn't think it was true. So we're going to get right into it. But before we talk about the draft lottery and all the logistics of it, we have to talk about markets. Markets I've talked about here before. It's been a big topic in the MLB and the NBA. I mean, markets are a huge, huge topic for any sports league anywhere. Now, it differs with MLB. It's huge because it has to do with how much money you can spend on players. But in the NBA, and the NHL, and the NFL, there's a salary cap. And in theory, it's supposed to limit the amount of pull a team has because of where they're located. Because you try to get away with advantages and disadvantages that you don't really control. Right? It's not the Charlotte Hornets' fault that they're the 29th or 28th smallest market in the NBA. That's just how the chips roll, and they really shouldn't be punished for that, right? So you put a salary cap so the Charlotte Hornets can spend as much money as the LA Lakers, who are in the number one market in the NBA, LA. But as time has gone on and players, these top 20, these top-end players have their own personal brands. They have their own shoe deals, their headphones, anything you name it, clothes, they have it, right, in terms of brand and their own personal brand, and they want to promote that. And as that has become more exceedingly common with, the top players in the NBA, the markets have been a huge, huge pull in the NBA. The bigger the market, the more bigger players want to go to. And this is kind of what this theory is all about. Now, to explain it better and give you an example, I believe that the top 10 markets in the NBA, if you're a top 10 market in the NBA, you have a shot if you have money to sign any top 5 free agent that year, to sign any star that year, no matter if your team is good or your team is bad. If you have money and you're in a big market, you have a shot to sign that team. I think 11 through 20, mid-market teams, if you have a good team and you have money, right, you have an opportunity to sign, but you have to have a good team, right? Top 10 markets, you don't have to have a good team. As long as you have money, you have a shot at a top free agent. I think 11 through 20, you have to have a good team and money in order to do that. 20 through 30, what did I say, 11 to 20, 21 through 30, you're not going to sign a top-end free agent. The Milwaukee Bucks aren't going to go out and they're not going to sign a guy like Anthony Davis or a Blake Griffin, any top-end all-star. They're not going to be able to sign it because they're in a small market. And guys like that want to be able to promote their brand, right? Blake Griffin is a great example. He was in LA. He was a big star. ESPN was always talking about Blake Griffin. He was getting all-star votes so much more easily and a lot of publicity. Then he gets traded to Detroit. And the news around the media, Colin Cowherd said it on Fox. He said, Blake Griffin's career is over. Going from LA to Detroit, I mean, it's day and night, right? So markets have a big factor, right, of how players are promoted, and the bigger stars want to be in the bigger markets because at the end of the day, the number one thing in basketball that's not to do with winning is money. The league wants to make money, the players want to make money, the owners want to make money, and the bigger the market, the more able you're to make money. Now, the NBA has done little things throughout, as it's become more common as players want to build up their brands and go to bigger markets to make money. They've made it easier for teams who've drafted that player to keep that player. So like a team like Milwaukee, who has Giannis Antetokounmpo, right? They have probably the number. I think LeBron's the best player in the NBA right now. So the second best player in the NBA, Giannis Antetokounmpo, is in a bottom 5 market right now. And in order for Milwaukee to keep Giannis, there's a thing called a supermax, right? And it's you can give Giannis Antetokounmpo 5 years, $200 million. The next best team can give Giannis Antetokounmpo 5 years, $170 million. So they're allowing the NBA is allowing the smaller markets and teams who have had these big stars to begin with give more money and able to kind of control or contain bigger players wants to just automatically go to a bigger market. Now that hasn't really worked out. And the best example, there are 2 really good examples. One of the teams is what this conspiracy theory has to do with, so I'll give you the other example first. It just happened this year. New York. New York is the second biggest market, maybe arguably the biggest market in the NBA. It depends on who you ask, right? And the Knicks were in the running to sign Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant. We heard it since February that since they traded Kristaps Porzingis to make all that cap room, that they wanted to sign Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant. And Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant were looking to go to the Knicks until they found out how insane Jim Dolan is, their owner. But they were looking to go to the Knicks, and the Knicks won 20 games last year. The Knicks were an awful team, but they had money and they were in a big market. Now, Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant ended up going to the Brooklyn Nets, also in New York. The Nets had to get rid of D'Angelo Russell, who was their best player to do so. But the Brooklyn Nets were an okay team. They were a 6th seed with D'Angelo Russell. So you take D'Angelo Russell off of that team. I don't know if they're a playoff team. And other than Spencer Dinwiddie and Jared Allen, I don't know if they have a great core, but they're in a big market and they had a lot of money, and they ended up getting Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving. The second biggest example, and this is where our conspiracy theory starts. It starts in LA. It starts with the Lakers. The biggest market in the NBA by far, and the Lakers are probably the second. Once again, you can argue, I could have a whole other episode on whether or not the Lakers or the Celtics are the more storied franchise in NBA history. But for this sake, we'll say that the Lakers are the greatest NBA franchise in NBA history since the 70s with Jerry West and was it 60s or 70s? I know my dad's gonna watch this and yell at me if I get this wrong. I'm gonna guess it's the 70s with Jerry West, and then you had Magic, James Worthy, Kareem, Wilt played I think he might have played with Jerry West. I don't know if it's the 60s or 70s. I didn't think I'd get to this point, but anyway, super storied franchise in the biggest market, and LeBron James, there will be an episode on this. I think the greatest player in NBA history goes from Cleveland, small market, to LA. Second time he leaves Cleveland, he goes to the LA Lakers. The LA Lakers are an awful team when he does this. They won 30 games last year, but they have a promising young core of Josh Hart, Lonzo Ball, Brandon Ingram, and Kyle Kuzma. It's promising because it was the first year. They showed flashes of greatness and the fact that they can win in the future, but they need a leader, right? So LeBron James, who is at kind of the tail end of his career, a lot of people think that he's nearing the end of his prime. It's now proven to be incorrect because he probably, if the season didn't get canceled this year, probably would have been the MVP of the NBA. But I digress. He goes to LA. He brings his family. He brings his son, LeBron James Jr. and Bryce Maximus to play, high school basketball in LA, which is probably becoming the most competitive place to play high school basketball, and AAU basketball is LA. And he brings his own personal brand, his lifetime deal with Nike, his new Spring Hill Entertainment, his movie-making company. He brings it to LA. He goes to LA because of the markets, not because of the team, not because he thinks like Lonzo Ball and Brandon Ingram are all-stars. He goes because it's the Lakers. It's the most storied franchise in NBA history, and it's LA. And it's a place for LeBron James to promote his personal brand, put his sons and his family in the best position to grow as basketball players and maybe even entrepreneurs, and make the most money. So he goes there. right? And because of these personal brands that these players are having, it's a lot easier for them to pack up their bags and go to a big market, not because the team's great, but because it's the biggest market. It's the place you can make the most money. And that's what it's shaping into now in the NBA. It went from you were loyal to your team, right? If we're going from the 90s on, it goes you were loyal to your team until they gave up on you. Then in the 2000s, it slowly turned into you go to the best team, right? With, LeBron going from Cleveland to Miami. Miami's is the 13th. Let me look on my notes here and see where Miami ranks in the biggest markets here. Miami, number 17. 17th biggest market. But he went there because it was the best team and he wanted to win. And now, because of these personal brands and the opportunity to make money, he went to LA, right, to do that. So LeBron goes to LA. He says he wants to win championships there, but we know it's a little bit more of a lifestyle move. And the NBA loves this. The league in general, so like Adam Silver and the people in charge, love the fact that LeBron goes to the NBA because the Lakers have been, the most storied franchise in the NBA, but the biggest market. And I'll take a quote from David Stern. David Stern, I'm reading this from the NBA.com. David Stern famously said the NBA's ideal finals matchup was Lakers versus Lakers. It's Lakers versus Lakers. It's the biggest market, right? The Lakers are the team. They are the buy. They make the most money for the NBA, and the NBA is licking their chops because the greatest player of all time, in my opinion, episode 6 will be about this debate, and I'll talk about it, but the greatest player of all time just went to LA. So now the Lakers just have to win, and it's amazing for the NBA. The Lakers are back on top. They back on the top of the NBA, winning championships once again with the greatest player of all time. The NBA loves this, but we quickly find out, and it's just not meant to be, that maybe LeBron is getting too old and he's playing his butt off, averaging 28, 8, and 8, but it's just not good enough as he gets injured, trying to carry too much of the load. We see the flaws. Like always, the Lakers were rebuilding, and the second year of your young core, you're always going to see flaws and see the negatives, and we do in Lonzo Ball, Brandon Ingram, Josh Hart, Kyle Kuzma. We see that maybe they're just not ready yet, and it's known that the Lakers need to get a second star. Now, they have the cap space to do so. They have 2 max slots because the only person that they're really paying that's over a long period of time is LeBron James. Now, they have other one-year deals with Lance Stevenson and Kentavious Caldwell-Pope. But LeBron is the only long-term investment that they're making. Everyone else is on rookie contracts or one-year deals with team options. So it's known that the Lakers have the cap space to get a star, right? But they need to get one. And if it means giving up their young talent to do so, that's going to happen. So now, we have the LA situation. LeBron is in LA. The young talent, we know that the NBA loves LA. LA, the biggest market. We're going to go to the other side of the spectrum. The New Orleans Pelicans. The 29th ranked market in the NBA. The second smallest market in the NBA, only behind the Memphis Grizzlies. Hold on to that thought. Hold on to the fact that the smallest market in the NBA is the Memphis Grizzlies, because we will get there. We will get to that point. Now, but we're still in New Orleans. Second smallest market, and they have a future Hall of Famer, top 5 player in the NBA, Anthony Davis, on their team. Now, the Pelicans have gone all in for Anthony Davis. It's not a LeBron James and Cleveland situation during the 2009, 2003 to 2010, where the Cavaliers were just awful in management and didn't know how to build around LeBron. And the Pelicans have made a very good attempt to build around Anthony Davis. They had a lot of young talent with Buddy Hield, and they traded Buddy Hield to Sacramento in order to bring DeMarcus Cousins over to the Pelicans to have a great power forward center tandem, 2 big man tandem with Anthony Davis and DeMarcus Cousins, number 1 and 2 in terms of centers or power forwards in the NBA. Unfortunately, DeMarcus Cousins tears his Achilles, and then he leaves New Orleans. And the Pelicans had made great trades in order to get Drew Holiday. I don't know if they traded or they signed Drew Holiday. I think they signed him because Drew was with Philly, and then he went to other teams. But anyway, Drew Holiday, very underrated. He could have easily have been an all-star in 2018, a very good player. So you have a potential all-star in Drew Holiday, Anthony Davis, and Marcus Cousins. Just not meant to be. Holiday is now in his 30s, and after Anthony Davis, the Pelicans have no future. They signed a lot of veterans in order to support Cousins and Davis, and the fact that Cousins tore his Achilles, which is a horrible injury, really messed up their trajectory. They had traded a draft pick to get a very good role player, Nikola Mirotic. They had signed Etuan Moore. Elfrid Payton, they had also signed a really good backup point guard, good perimeter defender to put behind Drew Holiday. But the problem is that all these guys are old and they've reached their potential. You know what Etuan Moore is going to be. You know what Nikola Mirotic is going to be. The only person developing on that team is Anthony Davis, and he's only 26. Now this is in 20... Let me look that up real quick. I think he's 26. This isn't very professional, me looking these things up during the interview. Not interview, report. So he was 26 at this point. At this point, he is 26 years old, and he is only developing. He's only going to get better. And then Anthony Davis goes to the front office and says, my contract ends 2020, but I'm not going to win with this team, and I'm not going to win in the small market. I want to be traded to a big market. I want to go to LA. The Pelicans are furious. They have their future Hall of Famer telling them that they want to go to a big market, and Quinn Demps at the time was the New Orleans Pelicans general manager. It is known around the league that Quinn Demps resents big markets, and it rattles the Pelicans. They hate that this is happening. It's a nightmare situation. Their future is gone. Once they trade Anthony Davis, they have no one else after Anthony Davis. They don't have any developing talent right now. When he says he wants to go to the Lakers, and this is a nightmare. This is a nightmare. And the Pelicans, they don't want to do it. They don't want to trade him. The Lakers try to offer them Lonzo Ball, Josh Hart, Brandon Ingram. The Pelicans say no. All those guys have their problems, and it's getting to and it's a very simple point. The Pelicans do not want to trade with the Lakers because they know that anything that the Lakers give them will most likely not match Anthony Davis. Not three of them. Josh Hart has the potential of being a solid starting point guard. There's a big question mark on Lonzo Ball because of the fact he got injured his rookie year and his second year in the NBA, along with the fact that he can't. This is how he shoots. He shoots like this. He doesn't have a jump shot, and he's a point guard. And that's, they're in the NBA now. You're building around point guards, and your point guards have to be able to shoot 3-pointers. And Lonzo Ball is more of a classical Jason Kidd-esque point guard who doesn't really shoot the three that often. His three isn't the best tool in his bag. It's more of driving the paint and creating shots for other players. And then you have Brandon Ingram, who's really skinny. His shot is inconsistent. There's a lot of question marks with Brandon Ingram. The only player on the Lakers that you really look at and you say, you know what, he could be a star is Kyle Kuzma. And the Lakers are like, no, we don't want to give up Kyle Kuzma. So the Pelicans and Lakers go back and forth with these trades. Nothing happens. Nothing transpires. It's kind of known as of that Anthony Davis will most likely not go to the Lakers because of the fact that the Lakers don't want to give up Kyle Kuzma. They had Ivica Zubac. Is that how you say it? They had Zubac, who was a power forward. They actually traded him to the LA Clippers. It was a great deal for the Clippers. He's doing phenomenal right now, but they don't have him anymore. So they are only willing to give up Ball, Hart, and Ingram. All three have question marks. They can't give up their future first-round picks because those are probably going to be 29th, 30th pick. There's no point in adding in a Lance Stevenson or Kentavious Caldwell-Pope into the deal because they won't stay with the Pelicans after that year. So there is no reason for the Pelicans to make this deal. And the NBA hates this. I theorize that the NBA is not happy with this because you have the LA Lakers, most storied franchise in NBA history in the biggest market in all of American sports, and you have LeBron James, the greatest player of all time there, and now you want a future Hall of Famer, Anthony Davis, to be the second star in LA, along with the fact that the Lakers, after Anthony Davis, will have another max spot. They will have another salary cap spot where they can go out and get a superstar, and Kawhi Leonard, who is now goes along with the theory that the fact that Kawhi Leonard is from California and that there's always been rumors that he's wanted to be a Laker. So you have for the NBA, you have the potential to have Kawhi Leonard, Anthony Davis, and LeBron James. By the way, this didn't happen, but it almost did happen. Kawhi ended up going to LA, but just the Clippers. But at that time, where this is like February, you have the potential to have 3 huge stars in LA and put the LA Lakers back on top, right? So now it's around. If you look up, I'll read you this article here. Anthony Davis. So this is from Bleacher Report. It says Anthony Davis trade rumors. Pelicans have no interest in Lakers deal right now. They have no interest. They don't want to trade him. So now let's fast forward to the draft lottery. The draft lottery was established in 1985 in order to reduce tanking. Now, the funny thing is that, by the way, if you're watching this and you don't know what tanking is purposely losing in order to get a very high draft pick. The NBA doesn't like that. They don't like the idea of you purposely losing on purpose to get a better draft pick, so they install the lottery so that even if you are the worst team in the NBA and you lose on purpose, there's still a possibility that you won't be able to get the first pick in the draft. And as the years gone by, it's even harder for the worst team in the NBA to get the first round draft pick, because now I'll read you out the odds here. The top three worst teams, so the bottom 3 teams in the NBA, all have the same amount of odds to get the number 1 draft pick. The difference is just the number 2. So 1, 2, and 3 can all have 14% chance of getting a draft pick, and then the number 1, the worst team, can only go as far as 5. 2 can go as 6. 3 can go as far as 7. The 7th pick in the draft, and so on. But anyway, draft lottery is made so that to limit tanking, and it makes it interesting, right? It makes it really interesting. It has people pay attention to a lot of the standings. Also, it makes a lot of money. SportsCenter literally has an hour pre-draft lottery show, and then has a half-hour draft lottery show. They make a lot of money off of it, so it's good marketing. It's entertaining, right? It's ordered to limit tanking. And they established in 1985. Patrick Ewing was the power forward out of Georgetown, was the consensus number 1 draft pick. The New York Knicks end up winning the draft lottery and draft Patrick Ewing. That was the first draft lottery ever. And people believe that draft lottery is rigged. There's a huge theory that has gone around for years that draft lottery was rigged in order to get a bona fide stud and star in Patrick Ewing to the, at the time, number 1 market in the NBA, the mecca of basketball, New York. So there was a lot of possibilities of that being rigged there, and it kind of, I don't know, for me it was a little bit of, I believe that too. There are videos out there right now that saying that draft lottery is rigged, and they're pretty convincing. So, all right, little jump cut here because I was getting thirsty, so I got some water. We were at the 1985 NBA draft lottery. People think it was rigged. Besides the point, I believe it. I would look it up after this video, but let's summarize everything because I've been a little sloppy in this conspiracy theory. But LA, number 1 market, most storied franchise. LeBron goes there because of the market, because he can make money, not exactly because of the team. NBA loves it. NBA loves LA, and the Lakers. Like we said with the quote, David Stern saying the ideal, finals matchup is LA versus LA, right? It is known that the Lakers' young core isn't good enough to win now with LeBron, so the Lakers are trying to get a second star, future Hall of Famer, and 26-year-old Anthony Davis, who is in the 2nd smallest market in the NBA, who kind of gets overlooked, if we're being honest, for how great he is, because he's in New Orleans, because he's not on prime time a lot, because New Orleans is a small market. is in New Orleans, says, hey, I don't want to be here anymore, and I know that even though I have one more year after this on my contract, I want out and I want to go to LA. The NBA loves the fact that that's happening. They love the fact that Davis wants to go to LA. That's where the theory is, that the theory that the LA wants, or the NBA wants Davis to go to LA because of the history that LA has and the fact that they're #1 market. New Orleans says no. Quentin Demps turns down every single offer that the Lakers have for him. They're at a standstill by February, and it's known around the league that Anthony Davis is probably not going to go to LA because they just don't have the pieces for the New Orleans could give them. And they don't have any future, key point, they don't have any future draft picks to really give to them of value because of the fact that if Anthony Davis goes to LA, the Lakers draft picks are going to be 29, 30, 28. They're going to be really low. So you only have 3 question mark prospects that the Lakers are willing to give up: Ball, Ingram, Hart, and draft picks that aren't really that valuable. So, rightfully so, the Pelicans don't want to give up Anthony Davis. Now, we get to the draft lottery, right? Get to the draft lottery. Quentin Demps, by the way, was fired, but David Griffin even came out and said, who was hired as the new president of basketball operations for New Orleans, David Griffin came out and said that our goal is to keep Anthony Davis. So, by the time the draft lottery rolls around in 2019, it's kind of assumed that Anthony Davis probably won't go to LA. That it's unlikely because they don't have the pieces. And they're, the Anthony Davis camp, right, his agents and everything, they're trying to push it, but you just look at the logistics of it, it just doesn't seem like it can work out because the Lakers don't exactly have all the needs to get a guy like Anthony Davis. So we go to the draft lottery, the 2019 draft lottery, and it's known as the Zion lottery because Zion Williamson, the power forward out of Duke, is the prize. You get the #1 pick in the draft, and you get Zion Williamson. Zion, quick water break, Zion is looked this way because he's explosive, athletic, dominant. He's kind of a mix of like a Shaq and a LeBron. Zion can run the floor and he can shoot the ball a little bit, right? But he's also so dominant in the post, gets a lot of rebounds. His field goal percentage is out of this world. What he's been playing right now in the NBA in his first couple games in the NBA were astonishing because he was scoring 19 points a game and his field goal percentage was in the 60%. It was phenomenal, and he did it all throughout college. So going to the NBA draft lottery, it's you get the #1 pick, you get Zion Williamson. So let me give you the odds here. I wrote it in my phone. Going into the draft lottery, right? You have the New York Knicks have 14%. The Bulls had 14%. But key things here. The LA Lakers were in the draft lottery because they didn't make the playoffs. And they had a 2.2% shot of getting the #1 pick, and they had the 2.8% chance of getting the #4 pick. The New Orleans Pelicans had a 6% opportunity to get the #1 pick. Keep those numbers in mind, right? And what happens in the draft lottery is that the Pelicans get the #1 pick, and in turn they get Zion Williamson, and the Lakers get the #4 pick. The chances of that happening are literally you can go in your calculator, calculate it 6% to 2%, and everything that happened is literally under 1%, and it happened. It happened. The Lakers got the 4th pick, and the Pelicans got the 1st pick, and literally that causes Anthony Davis to go to LA. The NBA gets their wishes. 2 huge stars, 2 future Hall of Famers playing with the Lakers. The Lakers still have cap space to go and spend money in order to get more role players to win a championship. But literally, for Anthony Davis to go to LA, that had to happen. Because think about it, right? The Pelicans, they win the draft lottery and they get Zion Williamson. And like we had stated previously, other than Anthony Davis, the Pelicans didn't really have a future. They had no one else who you looked at and were like, yeah, he can be really good one day. And now you kind of have that safety cushion. Because that was a big part of the Pelicans. The Pelicans didn't want to give up Anthony Davis because they had no one else after him. They had nobody behind Anthony Davis that they saw and said, okay, he can be good one day, right? And when you give up Anthony Davis, you want guys who are going to hopefully get to his level. And you look at Zion Williamson, they get the number 1 pick, and now they have him. The Pelicans are more comfortable with giving up Anthony Davis because now they have a future star for at least the next 7 years, right, based on how the NBA contract status works. So they have Zion for the next 7 years. And now the Lakers got the 4th pick. The Lakers get the 4th pick in the draft. So now the Lakers can be like, all right, New Orleans, we'll give you these 3, Lonzo, Hart, Ingram, and we'll give you the 4th pick in the draft, and we'll sprinkle in a future first-round draft pick. And then there were David Griffin, really smart. He got a bunch of swaps and everything with the Lakers. That's kind of, he's going to elongate the deal. That was really good on him. But the fact that the Pelicans got 1 and the Lakers got 4 completely changes the perspective of the Pelicans giving Anthony Davis to the Lakers, a thing that, I think the NBA really wanted, and it just magically happened on lottery night. No one thought, everyone was at the point where they thought, you know what, it just can't work out. That Davis just isn't going to be able to go to LA because they don't have the prospects and they don't have the attitude to give up Anthony Davis because they have no one else after him. And you go into this draft lottery, and magically, the Pelicans get the number 1 pick, they get Zion Williamson, and the Lakers, out of nowhere, get the 4th pick in the draft. And what's even crazier about this is that there were 4 teams, the top 4 teams in the draft lottery, the teams with the 4 worst records. None of them, other than the New York Knicks, another big market team, ended up getting in the top 4, right? And here's a little side note, right? Knicks get the 3rd pick. They get R.J. Barrett. R.J. Barrett was arguably the most complete player in the NBA draft, so you probably even nudge in a future star into New York, the 2nd biggest market, right? So R.J. Barrett, most complete player, ends up going to New York, and then the 2nd pick went to Memphis Grizzlies. Now, the consensus number 2 pick in the draft was Ja Morant, which in any other draft, Ja Morant would have been looked at as like the home run, number 1 consensus pick, future star, and he goes to the Memphis Grizzlies, like we had stated before, was the smallest market in the NBA. So you look at the top 4 picks that are decided in the NBA draft lottery. One is the Pelicans, gives them Zion Williamson and a safety cushion and kind of a comfortability to be able to give up Anthony Davis to go to LA. Number 2 is the smallest market in the NBA, by Pelicans, 2nd smallest market. Number 2 is smallest market in the NBA. The Memphis Grizzlies, they get a transcendent point guard in Ja Morant, right? Number 3, this one, is the New York Knicks, the 2nd biggest market in the NBA. They get the most complete player in the entire NBA draft. Before the college season was played, people were adamant on the fact that R.J. Barrett was going to be the number 1 pick in the draft. He ends up going to New York, and the 4th pick goes to the biggest market in the NBA, the LA Lakers, and everyone knows that the Lakers are not going to pick with this pick. It's going to be added in the Anthony Davis deal, and it happens. The Lakers, they give a Ball, Hart, Ingram, the 4th pick, and other picks for Anthony Davis. The 2nd star of the NBA goes to LA, right? Ja Morant, a transcendent point guard, goes to Memphis, the smallest market in the NBA. And the 3rd pick, the most complete player, R.J. Barrett, goes to the 2nd biggest market in the NBA, the New York Knicks. So look, if we're counting, 1st pick, 2nd smallest market, 2nd pick, smallest market, 3rd pick, 2nd biggest market, 4th pick, biggest market. And all of that transcended into Anthony Davis, a big-time player in a small market, joining LeBron James, the greatest player of all time, in the biggest market in the NBA, in the Lakers. I mean, the chances of that happening were, frankly, astronomical. And it just so happened that everything falls into place. Everything just happens like that. I just can't get my mind around the fact that everything just happens that way. Oh, it's random. You know, the Pelicans get the biggest prospect in the NBA since LeBron James, the same year that the greatest player in their franchise history, Anthony Davis, wants to go to the biggest market, LA. Oh, and it just so happens that the Lakers get the 4th pick in the NBA draft, right, which kind of changed the whole deal, right, in order to get a top 5 player, future Hall of Famer Anthony Davis on their roster. And also, I would like to mention, if the Lakers didn't get a top 5 pick, they weren't going to get their pick. Their pick was already traded to another team who was top 5 protected, which means that if the Lakers got in the top 5, they would have kept their pick, which they did, which there was a 2.8% chance of happening, which happened, which got Anthony Davis to go to the Lakers. I mean, the chances of this happening are literally less than 1%, and they just magically happen in order for the NBA to get 2 future Hall of Famers in their biggest market, and then supply 2, I think, future Hall of Famers in Zion Williamson and John Morant to 2 of the smallest markets. And to sprinkle in a little bit more conspiracy, the most complete player in the draft, R.J. Barrett, goes to the 2nd biggest market in New York. It's crazy. It's crazy. And I'm the only one, I've never read it, I'm the only one who thinks this. An 18-year-old from Illinois, just who I don't work for ESPN, I don't work for Fox, I'm not the big hitters like on ESPN, and I'm the only one who, for some reason, thinks that this just is rigged. And I don't know, I might be crazy, but the chances are just too small of just this all happening all at once at the perfect situation, creating the Lakers the biggest market in the NBA, which is known to be favored by the NBA to just get 2 huge Hall of Famers at once. This video was a little sloppy, just because I'm really passionate about these things, and I just kind of say it, and I don't really think about the order too much. I mean, I'm not this sloppy usually because I have everything written down, but this is more of a conspiracy theory, so I apologize for that. Hopefully you were able to tag along and were somewhat entertained by this video. Sorry about the quick jump cut. I got thirsty. But yeah, thank you for watching episode 4. If you have any comments on this little conspiracy theory, I'd love to hear them. I want to thank you for watching. Episode 5 is coming out on Saturday and will be more organized and more ready to go than this one. But I kind of just had to get an episode out there, and I've always, this little theory of mine has always been something that I like to just think of and gnaw at in my head. So, thank you. Really appreciate you watching. See you next time.